Howdy, guys, and welcome to Cliff Notes, and welcome to Survivor 43's episode 13 finale episode recap. 13 episodes. It seems like there's been a lot more content this season. Survivor does a fantastic job of squeezing a whole lot of action in every single one of these episodes. It's been great so far. I expect nothing less from the finale itself. Now, with that being said, a 3-hour episode tonight. That's a lot of content to cover. So let's get right into it. But before we do, let's talk. We still have to talk about last week. Oh, what an incredible episode. What an incredible blindside. As you recall, Jesse worked his magic, sent Cody out the door in one of the bigger blindsides we've seen in quite a few seasons, down to 5 players. 5 players left. Not only that, but Carla got a little spooked when she saw Jesse playing an idol, so she played her idol. As a result, there's only one idol left. It's owned by Jesse, and no one knows it. It's putting Jesse in a pretty good position, isn't it? So that's what we've got. Five people left, and with that, let's talk about the episode. Now, I really enjoyed the way this episode started off with our 5 castaways that are left, each talking kind of to the cameras, a little bit of a confessional, talking about what strengths, what advantages they think they bring to this very final segment of the game itself. It's interesting to hear what they think and envision that as part of a pitch to the jury if they make it to the very end. We've got Gabler feeling very good, saying that no one is seeing him as a primary target. He hadn't had his name written down once, so that's his strength at this point in time. Owen feeling that he's been very lucky so far. He's been on the wrong side of multiple votes. Surprise, certainly been talked about as a target multiple times. Owen's being a little lucky that he's still here playing that underdog role. And then we have Jesse recognizing that as brilliant as that last strategic move he made to get Cody out, it now really is put him in a position of being a huge threat. Yeah, he's got an idol that's going to guarantee him to Final Four, but after that, he knows there's a huge target on his back. And then we've got Cassie talking about the fact that she feels like she's been on the right side of every move, just the opposite of Owen. She feels like she has been on the right side of every single move, that she's made the correct call every week, and she's done a lot to make sure that she's gotten to where she is right now. And then finally, we've got Carla. We got Carla feeling beat down, vulnerable. It's been a tough haul for her. But she's still fighting. She's still representing that underdog, that fighting spirit. And I think all of these are legitimate and valid analyses of their position. Owen and Carlin, a bit of an underdog role. Although, how can you say that about Carla with as many challenges as she has won? But Owen and Carlin, a bit of an underdog role. The other 3 feeling like they've done what they need to get here. We'll see how it all plays out when we get to the final just a little bit later this evening. So, before we get any further, the final twist, I suppose, of the season, the tribe mates have each found a clue. They're each given a clue. And it's a clue to a secret advantage that one of them is going to earn for the final immunity challenge. And it's a clue that we've seen in past seasons. I really like it. It consists of a bunch of scrambled letters. You have to unscramble the letters to form multiple words. Once you have the words all figured out, it gives you a clue on where to look to find this final advantage. I love this thing because it allows the audience, the viewers, to play along. One hit to CBS, just flash the puzzle up on the screen that we can all pause it, work it through ourselves instead of having to try to find where they're holding it, looking at it, solve a little bit here and there. But I stopped. I froze it. I figured out the puzzle. I feel like I solved it pretty fast. Does that mean if I'm on the island, I'm the one that finds a clue? Yeah, probably so. Except I also understand it's a lot easier to solve when you're sitting in the comfort of your own home, as opposed to sitting out there on the sand, knowing that your life's on the line. Everyone's watching and everything else. Think of the pressure. These 5, one of them is going to win $1 million, and it could hinge based on who solves the word puzzle fastest. So a lot of pressure on them, but we do see that they're all trying to solve the puzzle. Carl is the first one to solve it. Owen finishes right behind her. Most of the words are easy. H-E-T or something, pretty easy to figure out. A few of the other ones, lifeless, things like that, a little harder to figure out. But Carla solves it first. Owen's right behind her. They both take off. It turns out that what they're looking for is a tree by the beach coming out with a rock at its surface. And they're both so close together. Eventually, Owen starts checking a tree. Just as he gets to the little crook of the tree where the secret clue is hidden, Carla reaches over, sees it, grabs it, literally not more than 6 inches from Owen's hand as he's reaching in the same direction. It's about as close as it can come. How would you like to be Owen, knowing you're that close to having this? Who knows what kind of advantage it is? Owen's unhappy. He certainly is upset that he didn't go just a little bit more. But props to Carla. She continues to do what she needs to do to survive in this game. At this point, she's found the clue. The other 3, as near as I can tell, it's tough to tell at the edit, but it doesn't appear that the other 3 even figured out the word puzzle before Carla found it. So she did a heck of a job. So what is Carla's advantage? Well, we don't know right now, but we're about to find out, because here comes the immunity challenge. Such an important challenge to figure out who's going to be safe, make it to Final Four. Now, we already know Jesse's headed that way because he's got that secret idol, hidden immunity idol, secret from everyone else. We know he's safe. One more person's going to be safe, which means we're going to have three people at risk this particular phase of the game. So what's their advantage? Well, we're going to find out. So first of all, let's talk about the challenge itself. They're starting off in the water. They've got a buoy about the size of a beach ball. They have to push. It's attached to a rope, or a rope strings through the middle of it. They have to push this buoy through all kinds of obstacles there in the water, climb up over platforms, push the buoy around the ropes that are wrapped around some of these platforms, things like that. Eventually, once they get the buoy to shore, they then have to use 2 handles, two blocks, we'll say. Use them to grab multiple blocks, carry them across a hinged ramp or a hinged balance beam. Once they get to the other side, set those blocks down. Once they've gathered all the blocks, I think there are maybe about 30 blocks or so. Those 30 blocks then are letters that are used to spell out yet another word puzzle. Thank you, CBS, for not having just purely physical challenge at the end. Survivor. Thank you, Survivor, for having not just pure physical challenges, but also having the mental strategy, the mental component as well. Well-balanced puzzle as a result of it. Use the individual words to spell out the final phrase. Whoever does that wins immunity. That's what's important, right? But in addition to immunity, they also get the reward challenge that I was hoping for last week when they got pastries and coffee and iced teas. None of that low-end stuff. They're in the penthouse today, because in addition to immunity, the winner's getting steak, mashed potatoes, cheesecake, a whole lot of other carbohydrate, protein-rich type foods. Just what you need for these last couple of days on the island itself. So a lot to be playing for. And as it turns out, Carla's advantage that she'd won, it's a big one. Turns out that about a third of the blocks that normally you have to grab with your handles and carry across the balance beam, about a third of those blocks, about 10 of them, have already been taken to the other side for Carla. So instead of 30 blocks, she only has 20. That represents probably 2 or 3 trips across the balance beam, depending on how many you carry at one time. That's a huge advantage. It certainly was worth fighting for and winning to start with. So Jeff starts this all-important final immunity challenge. As he starts it, Owen's taking the lead with everyone else close behind him. It's pretty close to the beginning, except for Jesse. I'm not sure what's going on. Jesse, as brilliant a strategist as he is, hasn't won any competitions this season, which amazes me. He looks like he's in great shape and smart in terms of puzzles and all that. It just hadn't gone his way. And yet again, for whatever reason, Jesse's a little behind everyone else. But Owen definitely has taken the lead at this point. He's the first to get to the puzzle blocks as he keeps the lead. But Carla actually is the first one to start solving the puzzle or carrying the blocks across, I guess, getting to the actual balance beam. So Owen, different strategies. Do you carry just a few blocks each time, which makes it easier to get across the balance beam, but takes more trips? Or do you carry more blocks, a little higher risk, but it means less trips across that beam? A little bit different. Carla, because she already has more blocks across, actually, I think has a few less blocks that she carries every time. Owen's carrying a lot of blocks. He's putting it all on the line, as you should at this point in the game, right? So it doesn't take as many trips for him to get across. But at the end, Carla is actually the first to start solving the puzzle, but Owen is right behind her. It's still kind of a 2-horse race at this point in time. It's a tough puzzle. There's a lot of words, and these old sneaky Survivor production folks, the phrase is set up so that you can tell that it's a 3-word, 1-word, or 3-letter, 1-letter, 5-letter. You know what the spacing is for the words, but the phrase is set up so there's a lot of different things that can be spelled out. And we see you and thee and one, and you can only imagine the various combinations. It's a tough puzzle, lots of letters, but in the end, Owen has won this challenge, is guaranteed Final Four. I think this is important for Owen. I think at 5, anyone except Jesse with his idol, the other 4, any one of them could potentially be at risk at this point in time. Owen has guaranteed himself a trip to the Final Four, which means he's not going to be voted out. He's either going to win the final competition, earn his way to the Final 3, he's going to get drugged to the Final 3, or he's going to win a fire-making challenge and make it to Final 3. There's no voting at this point in time going forward. So Owen is advanced to Final 4 at this point. Huge win for Owen. And he gets a little extra advantage as well, or an additional opportunity. One last opportunity to play a little bit of a social game, because it's not just him going to eat steak, but he actually gets to pick someone else to go along with him and partake in this meal and get that extra energy right at the last little bit of time. And as it turns out, he has picked Cassidy. Yeah, Cassidy gets to go and enjoy a little nutrition as well. Now, I thought about it. If you're Cassidy, on the one hand, you're starving. You've been eating nothing but a little handful of rice here and there and a bunch of coconuts. And we haven't even seen them fishing in a while, but I assume there's still some of that happening. But suddenly you got all this steak and everything else. Cassidy has to be over the moon that she gets to go eat this food. But it's a little bit scary as well. While she's off eating with Owen, who is safe this week, you got 3 other people sitting back on the beach, maybe feeling just a little bit jealous that you're there, but also potentially talking with each other and conspiring and plotting everything else. I feel as much as the food is a huge advantage from Cassidy's standpoint, there could be a little bit of a concern, a little bit of paranoia while she's off eating. I don't remember any Survivor season where anyone has ever done it, but how would Jeff have responded if Cassie said, "Yeah, I'm good. I'll just go back to camp with everyone else"? No, it would have been interesting. She doesn't do that. The steak's calling her name. Probably be calling my name as well if I'm on the island. But we do have Owen and Cassidy then heading off to enjoy their feast while everyone else heads back to the beach itself. Now, the other thing I thought about, it's interesting. We've heard Gabler talk a lot about how just out of gas he is. Carla said the same thing as well. Owen taking someone like Cassidy, was that done from a strategy standpoint, just in terms of conversation and who you want to target and all of that? Was there also a component of his selection of trying not to take some of the people that maybe he feels are suffering the most physically from lack of food? You don't want some of your opponents getting all energized right before the final competition, right? That could have come into as well. Maybe pick Cassidy because she seemed to be the least affected by the lack of nutrition so far. I don't know. Just something to think about. Meanwhile, while we got Cassidy and Owen eating, they're also doing a whole lot of talking and conspiring, as you would expect. They're basically talking about, do we send home Carla or Jesse? Seems like those are the 2 big targets. They both had a big hand in last week. Carla's played her idol. She's now vulnerable. They don't know that Jesse has an idol. They think that he is now has a huge item on his resume of getting Cody out. So it really seems like Carla and Jesse are the targets at this point in time. And which way do they go? They want to work together. Owen's leaning towards voting out Jesse. Feels like Jesse's the biggest threat in front of the jury. And I was going to say I tend to agree. They're both big threats. But Owen is thinking that Jesse's the biggest threat. Cassidy is pushing, though, to get Carla out of the game. I think it still gets back to that conversation Gabler had last week, where he basically told Cassidy that, hey, you and Carla are playing a very similar game. Y'all may both be trying to claim the same credit for the same moves. Jesse, you and Cody are playing a very similar game. Y'all both may be claiming the same credit. I think those comments by Gabler have stuck with Cassidy, and I think that's why she's more inclined to get at Carla at this point in time over Jesse. And she's talked Owen into it, because at the end, it seems like both of them now are potentially looking at Carla as the biggest target to send off the island at the next tribal council. But while these two are talking, of course, back at camp, we got the other three talking as well. Gabler talking to us and a little bit to the other castaways, I think, if I recall, talking about how out of gas he is, how just completely exhausted. Remember, it wasn't but episode 2 or 3. He's laying around camp saying, this is horrible. I can't barely move. I'm so out of gas. I think Sammy was talking about he just didn't know if Gabler could make it to the end without nutrition. He's done what it takes, but he's still feeling like he's just not right on top of his game because of the lack of nutrition. Again, good reason for Owen not to take him to this feast this evening. So Gabler's talking about that. We've got Carla and Jesse talking to each other, figuring that they're both the primary two targets. They're correct. They are. And wondering what they're going to do. And they're saying, look, we probably can't flip Cassidy at this point in time. Not sure. She's over there talking to Owen. She's probably going to maybe work with Owen. We may not be able to do anything with her, but if we can get Gabler on board, the two of us plus Gabler, we could get Cassidy out at this point in time. Carla's fine getting Cassidy out. Again, it may have something to do with Gabler's comments about them playing the same game, her and Cassidy, but Carla's fine with that. If they can get Gabler on board, Owen's safe, but send Cassidy out the door, you've got your final four. Seems cut and dried, right? Yeah, nothing like that on the island, because as soon as that conversation is over, we've got Carla talking to the camera saying, yeah, actually, I think Jesse's a bigger threat. I think it's time to get Jesse out right now. I'll tell Jesse I'm going after Cassidy, but Jesse's actually my target going forward. It makes sense from Carla's standpoint. At this point in time, getting Cassidy or Jesse out, either one is not bad for Carla's game, but Jesse's got to be the biggest target on this island, I think, right now. So that's where Carla's going to head with it. But Gabler, slightly different train of thought. Gabler is talking about the fact that his preferred final three is to not have Jesse or Carla in the mix. He thinks his final three would likely be him and Owen and Cassidy. That's what he'd like to say. Gabler, Owen, and Cassidy. Keep that in your mind. It's funny, this point in time, final five, he's tried to figure out his final five. I know in my season of Big Brother, I really wanted my final three. In my season, Big Brother, I wanted my final three to be Nicole and myself and Holly. I had that envision. I worked towards that. Didn't quite work out. Gabler's thinking his best final three would be himself and Owen and Cassidy. We'll see how it works out for Gabler. But that means this tribal council, they're going to need to be gunning for either Jesse or Carla. I'm not sure which Gabler would prefer. He may not care as long as it's one or the other. But we certainly have Carla making her push for Jesse. As she told the camera she would. She talks to Gabler, she talks to Owen, then she talks to Cassidy about wanting Jesse out, which I think all of them are probably okay with if it comes down to it. Excuse me. But Owen, hearing Carla make this pitch, this conversation, and realizing, he's saying, look, Carla's making some really good points on why Jesse needs to go right now. It's not that I disagree with her, but the more she talks, the more Owen starts thinking that, or recognizing that as valid as Carla's comments are, it also is demonstrating to him more and more what a great persuader, what a great speaker Carla is. So as she puts the target more and more on Jesse, she's also growing the target more and more on herself. Double-edged sword, right? So Owen is certainly recognizing that. And Cassidy, talking to camera, saying that she's not really happy the way Carla's using scare tactics on her. She gets a little upset that Carla makes a mention about one or two moves that she's claiming as her own. Cassidy feels like she's kind of discounting her game as well. So Cassidy's still thinking she'd be okay. Remember, we had a little bad blood last time. Cassidy against Carla, vice versa. A little tough for these two have worked so well together, but Cassidy's still a little on edge with Carla in her game right now. So with all that going on, we've got Cassidy now telling Jesse that Carla is pushing to vote him out. Just so you know, Jesse, don't think you and Carla are tight with each other. She's gunning for you. I think Cassidy's playing right now a little bit of that Sandra Diaz type of anyone but me. Just anyone but me. So she mentions that to Jesse. And from that, We got tribal council going on. Owen is safe. Jesse's safe. But beyond that, we don't have a lot of votes, and we got a lot of people saying different things. Not really sure how this is going to work out. We have, during the conversation part of tribal council, Carla talking about what an amazing move Jesse made at the last tribal and really pushing to vote against him. You know, what better way to put a target on someone else than to talk about what a huge resume they've got at this point in time. And Carla's making no bones. She's not trying to hide it. She's saying Jesse should be the target at this point in time. And Jesse, I thought it was interesting at the time. Jesse immediately says, well, you know, you can say all that, but I'm feeling pretty good tonight, Jeff. And at that point, he pulls out his idol and says, yeah, I got an idol. It's Janine's idol. And I think I've got it. I'm going to be safe this evening. Everyone so blindsided. Cassidy's jaw has dropped. Perhaps no one's jaw has dropped more than Janine, who apparently not only did not realize, well, she didn't realize that her idol was still in play. Probably a little chapped about that was still out in the island. I guess Dwight didn't tell her that he didn't still have it. I'm curious how that conversation didn't take place, but Janine is definitely shocked. I think everyone is shocked that Jesse has this last idol that's going to give him protection in addition to Owen. So he's revealed he's got the idol. And then my first question when he did it was, why? Why reveal it right now before the votes are cast? Why not keep it a secret and potentially be the only vote to send someone else home? Hey, you've got the idol. Let everyone else gang up against you and let everyone else talk about how you're the greatest threat left in the game. Let the jury hear that in preparation for the final jury pitches and all. Let them all gang up against you. Let it be 4 votes cast against you. Then you play your idol. Your single vote decides who goes home. That's what I was thinking of why maybe if I was Jesse, I wouldn't have revealed it quite what he did. But it may be that he's got one more opportunity where he could be in trouble at this point in time. So maybe he wants to avoid the others deciding that he is the biggest target. So by playing the idol, he certainly is shifting the conversation. But again, if it was me, I may have waited just a little bit. Again, everyone is in shock. And now that Jesse is also safe, Cassidy is very much aiming for Carla. Carla was going after Jesse. Well, that conversation stops completely. Cassidy's now taking the reins, pointing the finger at Carla, basically wanting Carla sent out the door at this point in time. And now, I question why Jesse played the idol right now. Jesse's played a great game. Jesse is now maybe revealing why he revealed that he had the idol. He's using it as a negotiation tool. He's using the fact that he is safe to leverage into a little bit more of a power play of, hey, I got to vote. Who am I going to use it? You can't vote against me. I'm kind of a free agent in this point in time. And using as a bit of a negotiation, trying to get others on board to control who actually does go home. He starts talking about to Carla about maybe what they could do. The two of them are talking about maybe at this point getting Gabler on board. Remember, that was talked about until Carla decided that she really wanted Jesse gone. Well, now they're safe. Jesse's back saying, hey, let's get Gabler. We'll get rid of Cassidy, back to the original plan number 1A, whatever it was. But everyone starts breaking up into small groups. Before you know it, everyone's whispering, everyone's talking. It's hard to tell who is actually with who at this point in time. Whose game benefits, who's getting the other person out. It's a little tough. And with that, it's time to vote. So, as it turns out, Jesse has played his idol. Last week, he played it on behalf of Owen. Yeah, not this week. Jesse's played the idol on himself. He does tell Jeff, says, I think I'm safe no matter what. But just to make sure, I'm going to play on myself. So we've got Jesse safe. We've got Owen safe. 3 people eligible for eviction. Carla, Cassidy, and Gabler. So the votes come in. Jesse, Carla, and Carla. Carla is gone by a vote of 3-1, 4-1. I think it's 4-1. They didn't reveal the last vote. Carla's been evicted from the island. Her torch has been snuffed. I got to say, props to Carla. I underestimated her at the beginning of the season. She talked later in the reunion that she felt like a lot of people did, and she's right. But she displayed so much determination, so much fight, so much spirit, and a lot of strategic planning as well. she played a great game. She absolutely deserved to get to where she was. So props to Carla. She certainly had an outstanding game, but Carla's out. We're now down to our final four of Cassidy, Owen, Gabler, and Jesse. No more tribal councils. It's all about fire making and making your pitch to jury at this point in time. So we're heading. Remember, I said had so much content in every single episode. We got it again. We're heading right into the final immunity challenge. So this immunity challenge, no water. It's kind of a head-to-head type situation. You have to grab a long fork, a long rod with two little prongs on the end. Picture a big marshmallow fork or something. Use that long fork to grab a wooden bowl, about that big around. Grab a wooden bowl, move it through a wire path that's a vertical type wire path. It's sitting on top of a spring. So this wire configuration moves just a little bit. At the top of it's a little platform. One at a time, you have to move the bowls through the wire path, set the bowl on top of this slightly moving configuration, and repeat it 15 times. 15 times. Stack 15 bowls on top of this thing. Get back to your mat. Person who does it first has won their way into the final three. Guaranteed final three. Gets to decide who's going to come with them. Gets to decide which two are going to have to go after the fire making. Sorry, guys. I was excited. I was watching the show. I doing a lot of talking, a lot of cheering out loud last night or this evening. All right, we've got Gabler with the early lead as they're moving the bowls with Cassidy and Owen right behind. But here's the thing. In this particular challenge, leads don't really matter. You can be way in the lead of everyone else. If you're up to 14 and suddenly your stack of bowls falls over, you're at the very beginning, you're suddenly in last place. So it doesn't matter that much. But Gabler has the early lead. Cassidy and Owen are right behind him. And sure enough, Gabler's stack falls. There's a lot of wind blowing as well. There's only so much you can do to control these stacks, and the wind just little gust comes in. Gabler's is gone, so he's back to square one. At this point now, Cassidy is in the lead with Owen just seconds behind. They're both up to 13 with 2 to go, and the wind is. These things are just wobbling back and forth. It's amazing these things can stay up. 13, 2 to go. Cassidy is now up to 14, and Owen's tower falls. Yeah, Owen not happy. Throws his rod down, actually bends the rod. We find out a little bit later. It's Cassidy's to win or lose at this point. She needs one more bowl. If she makes it, she wins. If it falls over, Gabler could come back. Who knows who could win at this point in time. But it doesn't matter because Cassidy makes it out there. As far as I don't think they showed Cassidy ever having her stack fall. Start to finish, she took her time. She was careful. Cassidy has won the final competition. She's earned her spot into the final three, decide who's going to go to that final three with her. Congratulations to Cassidy. Man, she's in a fantastic spot. Nice little resume builder right now. She definitely deserves that spot in the final three. So who's going to go to fire making? Cassidy's the one that's going to make this decision. Surely Jesse, right? Jesse has to be the biggest target in a lot of people's mind. But does Owen go up against him? Cassidy's already said that she thinks that Gabler would lose to her. So maybe she wants to go ahead and drag Gabler to the end with her right now, which would mean putting up Owen versus Jesse. Now, Owen is talking Cassidy, really pushing her to put him up against Jesse in the fire making because he thinks that he can beat Jesse. And I think it's also a situation where Owen's thinking that if he does beat Jesse, what a huge bump to his resume at the very last minute to talk to the jury about. So, and Owen, as much as he's talking about playing the underdog role, I think he realizes he probably needs some kind of big action like this at the very end. So Owen is pushing that he doesn't want safety. He doesn't want to get drugged to the final three. He wants to win the fire making challenge and earn a spot in the final three. How strange is it that in the game of Survivor, the way they've set this thing up, is that people are willing to put themselves at risk and go to fire making just because if you win, you know you got that huge resume boost as a result. It's such an interesting, complex decision. Do you take the easy? Not that you're making the decision, but do you push to get the easy entry to the final three? Are you comfortable enough with your ability to pitch to the jury that you don't need to win the fire building? Or if you do, now you've got an opportunity to get that little extra boost to your resume. I love it. I love this new format that Survivor's got, I think. So Owen's pushing that he'd like to go to fire. Jesse, in the meanwhile, is Jesse's got an interesting pitch. Jesse knows that he's the biggest target. He knows that he's going to be competing against someone to make fire. Jesse thinks that the easiest person to beat in a fire making challenge is actually Cassidy. Unfortunately, Cassidy won this competition. She's straight to final three. Jesse's trying to make an interesting push to her, saying, look, I know you got safety final three, but truly, if you want to win this game, if you're looking at the title and not just making it to final three, you need something on your resume, such as beating me in a fire making challenge. As much as it seems counterintuitive, you really ought to give up the immunity. Choose to go to the fire making challenge with me. If you beat me, man, then you got such a huge vehicle at the very end to pitch to the jury. So that's Jesse's pitch. I don't think Cassidy's buying it. Yeah, it makes sense. Logically, it makes sense, but to give up a guaranteed access to final three, that's tough to do. And Cassidy's basically saying, nah, I get it, but don't think it's going to happen. I mentioned that Owen wanted to go up against Jesse in fire making. Well, so does Gabler. Gabler is telling Cassidy that he really thinks he can beat Jesse in fire making and that he would like to go up against him and beat him instead. So Cassidy says, well, show me what you can do, Gabler. And Gabler tries to start a fire. It's just not working. I'm trying to remember back watching the rest of the season. I don't remember Gabler starting a lot of fires. I don't know how much practice he has, but it's not working well when it's needed because Cassidy is watching and just not seeing it necessarily happening. So throws a little bit of kink in the plan. Who's Cassidy going to take? Is she going to take the person that she thinks can beat Jesse, most likely in making the fire? You would think so. We'll find out here in a second. So at Tribal Council, both Gabler and Owen are saying that they want to compete in the fire making challenge, but only one can go, assuming Jesse's it. And Cassidy says, yeah, it's gonna be Jesse. She also now is picking to go up against Jesse, Gabler. Yeah, she picked Gabler, which is very interesting because really watching the two, it seemed like Owen was maybe better at making the fire, better chance of beating Jesse in this final competition. And yet that's not who she chose. She chose she chose Gabler, which means Owen is going to the final three along with Cassidy, one spot left. So why did she pick Gabler over Owen to go up against Jesse in fire building? I think Cassidy made this decision out of fear that if Owen was the one to go up against Jesse in the fire building and beat Jesse, that gives him that resume boost that Cassidy doesn't want to see. And that there is a possibility that between Owen playing such an underdog role and then winning at the very end, that it would be enough to swing the jury over to his side over Cassidy. Cassidy didn't want that. We heard Cassidy say earlier in the episode that she thought she could beat Gabler in front of the jury anyway. So she has chosen Gabler, even though maybe his chances of beating Jesse aren't quite as strong. If he does beat Jesse, I think in Cassidy's mind, it's less likely that Gabler would be able to use that as a resume bump to win the whole thing as opposed to Owen. I think that's what's going on in her mind. But it doesn't matter. She's picked Owen and Gabler and Jesse to go against each other. And one of them's going to be the final addition to the final three. So, fire making. Let us commence. Who's going to win this thing? Well, I got to say, it isn't even really close. Not to drag it out and be dramatic. It isn't really even close. Gabler kills it. I think Jeff mentioned one time the fastest fire that's ever been made. I thought Gabler was putting way too much kindling on it, that he was too flat versus vertical, and maybe was going to burn up before it got to the rope. It shows what I know about fire building, because Gabler loads it up, gets a fire going, burns through the twine before it has a chance to burn out. Poor Jesse. Jesse is spent a lot of time talking about how important this is to him. He's trying to make this fire, and it's just not working. It's just not doing what it needs to be. And the writing's on the wall. Everyone sees it. Gabler is one of the things. Jesse is not going to be able to make it to final three. Congratulations to Gabler. He deserves it. The older guy, I'm happy to see him make it to the final three. Go old guy. But Jesse was so invested in this game, and I know he thought and knew how much it could mean to he and his family, and it's just really overwhelming to him that he's not going to make it to Final Three. I feel so bad for Jesse. I want to see this guy compete again somewhere on down the road. He played such an incredible game. I hope we see him back. But at this point, Jesse becomes the final member of the jury. We now have our final three: Cassidy, Owen, and Gabler. Here's the thing. I'm fine with any one of these three winning. They all deserve to get there. Every once in a while, you get a season where there's someone you just think, they kind of got carried. They kind of snuck under the radar. No, I think all three of these, any one of these three, I'm fine with winning. So we're going to find out what happens. Not to get into the whole jury conversation, because we only have so much time when we're trying to recap a 3-hour episode, but it really comes down to questions about the social game, the physical game, the strategic focus. Just a real quick summary about what each one said. Gabler's saying that his game was all about trust, all about relationships. He mentions multiple times that he didn't just have one ride or die. He had multiple groups he was working with so that he had maximum amount of protection. And yet, with all of that, he didn't really ever feel like he burned anyone to the point that it created issues. That's the thing you have to worry about. Gabler saying, look, I had all these different relationships. People trusted me. No one ever put my name down. That's a big part of what he's pushing. So that's kind of Gabler's argument. Cassidy is pointing out, saying, look, I had a good pulse, a good read on this game from start to finish. She said, that's why I was always on the right side of the vote. I was never on the wrong side. I was never caught off guard, except maybe when Jesse pulled out that hidden immunity idol that she didn't know about. Other than that, though, she said, I always knew what was going on in this game. I voted the right way. It was all about my strategy and relationships to get me where I needed to be. And she also talks about the fact how it's a little bit tougher for her that so many women were voted out earlier in the season, and it just made it tougher towards the end, how proud she is to be the last woman left. Kind of smart of her just to throw out that little reminder to some of the ladies on the jury that just in case you haven't noticed, I am the only woman up here. So she's talking about that. And then Owen talking about how much of an underdog he was throughout the season, that he was always on the wrong side of the vote, that he was potentially thrown up as a target all kinds of times. And his big argument is that he has had to fight harder than the other two to get where he is, and that he has shown a lot more determination in doing what it takes to get there because he wasn't always on the right side of the vote. Interesting argument. I mean, he's selling what he's got, and all three are doing a good job. As the questions continue, I really think all three of these very well prepared, doing a fantastic job of answering their questions. Now, at the very end, I think Cassidy stumbled a little bit on one question when she was talking about trying to persuade everyone to vote out Ryan. I think the question is, what did you do from a persuasion standpoint that made a difference? She talks about her persuading everyone to vote out Ryan, and then learning that the ride or dies, the guys, Cody and Jesse and Gabler and I can't remember who else, they already kind of had it in their mind to vote out Ryan. So maybe Cassidy wasn't quite as involved or the author of that move as much as she's claiming. So a little bit of a stumble there. Owen, I gotta say, I love Owen. I love him as a player. I feel like maybe he was a little bit too honest at times about his lack of persuasive moves. He got a lot of people. I think everyone understood exactly where he's coming from. And when he said, look, I was on the wrong side, so I didn't have a lot of opportunities to make these big persuasion moves and all that. It's valid. It's honest. I think people respect he and his game, both. But I just feel like maybe he's a little too honest about what he didn't do, and maybe should have sold himself just a little bit more. Perhaps relying just a little too much on his underdog role. People love an underdog. Doesn't always mean that they vote for the underdog if they think someone else is more deserving of the title. So it's time for the vote. We get everyone voting. Now, in seasons past, Jeff has gone back to LA. These poor tribe castaways have to sit there for months on end waiting to hear what the final votes are. But that has changed here recently, and it's changed again this evening because Jeff says, yeah, we're going to do it right here. We're going to read the votes. Y'all aren't waiting. You deserve to know right now what's happening. So we're going to find out who the winner is. Well, we're watching on TV, but they find out in the jungles of Fiji who the winner is. So what are the votes? We've got one vote for Cassidy, We've got one vote for Gabler. We've got another vote for Gabler, another vote for Gabler, another vote for Gabler, and another vote for Gabler. It turns out all but one vote have been cast for Gabler. Gabler is the winner of Survivor 43. The older guy wins Survivor. I am so proud of him. I'm so happy for Gabler. Yay. I love to see it. As I said, any one of the three, I would have been happy. But to see Gabler win it, he captured the jury's attention. He answered their questions. He showed why he deserved, but he also had some humorous phrases. He is talking about the Gablergator. He had the jury laughing with him. He captured their hearts, and so Gabler certainly deserves it. The old guy won. I am always going to be happy to see that, but beyond just age and all that, he absolutely deserved this title. Now, he doesn't end there. Pretty good season. I like who made. I loved everything about this season. Gabler just decides he's going to add a little extra to it by announcing that, yeah, he won the title, but in addition to that, he wants to make history. He's donating his entire $1 million check to a military veterans group. I think he may have said the Navy SEALs, but I'm not 100% on that. He's dedicating it to military veterans who are going through PTSD and other situations as a result of wartime conditions and all that. Man, I gotta say, I love watching Gabler, but him doing this just bumps the stock up even more. And then we get to see quite the moment. Ryan, whose father was military, Ryan so appreciative of what Gabler's done. I think everyone appreciative. The other castaways, Jeff Probst, all of us viewers. It's just such an incredible gesture that Gabler has done that. So there you have it, guys. We had some talk about at the reunion about different things, but we got to wrap this thing up. But we saw who won. Gabler is our winner this season. So completely deserving. He played a fantastic game. He played a little aggressively at the very beginning. I mean, he made his moves that he needed to make. Remember, he risked his vote in the very beginning. He won that immunity idol. He was very involved in the start. He realized that maybe people are starting to get targets on their backs based on playing such strong games. He just sank back down, just like an alligator would do, sank back down, played under the radar for a while. No one ever wrote his name down. Brilliant game. I loved it from start to finish, not just Gabler, but everyone else in this season. The twist, the competition, it's going to be one of the top seasons, I think, for a long time going forward. So there you have it, guys. Survivor 43 is in the books. We saw a little introduction for Survivor 44. I'm ready for it. Until then, guys, y'all have a great one. See you next spring for Survivor 44. SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.